Have you ever heard the name Donald Trump? Yes, you probably have. He is a very famous person all over the world. He is a businessman, a TV star, and a president of the United States. But how did he do it? How did a man with no political experience become the most powerful person in the world? This is a story about money, power, and a very big personality. It is a story of great success and great controversy. This is the story of Donald J. Trump. Let's start at the very beginning.
Donald John Trump was born on June 14, 1946. He was born in a part of New York City called Queens. New York is a very big, busy, and exciting city. Donald was not born into a poor family. His family was rich. His father was Fred Trump. Fred was a very successful and tough businessman. He built houses and apartments in New York. He started his own company when he was only 20 years old. He worked very hard and became a millionaire. Donald's mother was Mary Ann. She came from a small village in Scotland, a country in Europe. She moved to America in 1930 with very little money and worked as a maid before she met Fred. Donald was the fourth of 5 children. He had 2 brothers, Fred Jr. and Robert, and 2 sisters, Mary Ann and Elizabeth. The Trump family lived in a big house in a nice, quiet area of Queens called Jamaica Estates. Fred Trump wanted his children to be strong and successful. He was a very demanding father. He taught them to be killers, to be winners in life. As a boy, Donald had a lot of energy. He was competitive and sometimes aggressive. His father said he was a pretty rough fellow when he was small. He liked to get into fights and cause trouble in the neighborhood. He was confident and wanted to be the center of attention. When Donald was 13 years old, his parents decided he needed more discipline. They sent him to a special school. It was the New York Military Academy. A military academy is a school with very strict rules, like the Army. Students wear uniforms and have to march. His parents hoped it would teach him to control his energy and respect authority. Donald liked the military school. He said he enjoyed the rules and the competition. He did well in sports, especially baseball, and became a student leader. This was his only time with the military. He did not become a soldier later in life. During the Vietnam War, he received 4 student deferments to stay in college and 1 medical deferment for bone spurs in his heels. After military school, Donald went to college. First, he went to Fordham University in New York, but he wanted more. After 2 years, he moved to a very famous university. It was the University of Pennsylvania. He studied at the Wharton School, a very good and prestigious school for business. He learned about money, economics, and real estate. Real estate is the business of buying and selling land and buildings. This was his father's business, and Donald wanted to make it bigger. In 1968, Donald graduated with a degree in economics. He was 22 years old and ready to start his career. After college, Donald Trump did not start a new company. He joined his father's company. The company was called Elizabeth Trump and Son. It was a very successful company that built solid, affordable homes for middle-class families in Queens, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. Donald learned a lot from his father. He worked with his father for 5 years, but he had bigger dreams. His father was the king of the outer boroughs.
Donald wanted to be the king of Manhattan. Manhattan is the heart of New York City. It has the tallest buildings, the most famous shops, and the richest people. It was a big challenge. In the 1970s, New York City had many problems. The city was dirty, dangerous, and had very little money. It was near bankruptcy. Many people were leaving the city. But Donald saw opportunities where others saw problems. He saw old, empty buildings and thought, I can make this new and beautiful. His first big project was a hotel. It was the old Commodore Hotel next to the famous Grand Central Station. The hotel was old, ugly, and losing money. Donald had a big idea. He wanted to turn it into a modern, glass-covered luxury hotel. But he did not have enough money to buy it. He was only 27 years old. So he made a deal. This is what Donald Trump is famous for, making deals. He was very creative and persuasive. He talked to the city of New York. He asked for a special favor, a tax abatement. A tax abatement means you don't have to pay property taxes for some years. It was a very difficult thing to get, but Donald was persistent. He used his father's political connections. After a lot of negotiation, the city said yes. They gave him a 40-year tax abatement. This saved him millions of dollars. With this promise, he convinced a bank to give him a loan and partnered with the Hyatt Hotel Company. In 1980, the new Grand Hyatt Hotel opened. It was beautiful and successful. It showed everyone that Donald Trump was a new, important player in New York real estate. The 1980s were a big decade for Donald Trump. He was young, rich, and full of confidence. He wanted to put his name on everything. He started building more and more. His most famous building is Trump Tower. Trump Tower is on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. Fifth Avenue is one of the most famous and expensive streets in the world. Trump Tower is a 58-floor skyscraper made of dark glass and shiny brass. It is very luxurious. It has a 6-story atrium with a waterfall, expensive shops, offices, and very expensive apartments. Donald Trump himself lived at the top in a very large 3-floor penthouse apartment. The apartment was decorated with gold, mirrors, and marble. It looked like a palace. Trump Tower became a symbol of success and wealth in the 1980s. It was shiny, it was big, and it had his name on it in big gold letters. But he didn't stop there. He expanded his business into a new area, casinos. A casino is a place where people play games to win money, like poker and slot machines. He went to Atlantic City, a city in New Jersey famous for its casinos. He built the Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino, and then the Trump Castle. In 1990, he opened his biggest casino yet, the Trump Taj Mahal. He called it the 8th wonder of the world. It was enormous and decorated in an Indian palace style. It cost almost $1 billion to build. During this time, Donald Trump became very, very famous. He was not just a businessman anymore. He was a celebrity. He bought a huge yacht, a private airplane with his name on it, and a football team. He wrote a book in 1987 called Trump, The Art of the Deal. The book was a #1 bestseller. In the book, he shared his secrets for business and negotiation. He presented himself as a brilliant deal maker who always wins. The first sentence of the book is, "I don't do it for the money. I've got enough, much more than I'll ever need. I do it to do it." The book made him even more famous.
He was everywhere. He was in magazines, on TV shows, and in movies, often playing himself. He loved the attention. He represented the idea of success in the 1980s. More is more. For many people, Donald Trump was the American dream. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Donald Trump had tall buildings, big casinos, and a famous name. But behind the scenes, there were problems, big problems. Building his empire was very expensive. He borrowed a lot of money from banks. He had billions of dollars in debt. And his casinos in Atlantic City were not making enough money to pay the debt. The Trump Taj Mahal, his billion-dollar casino, was in trouble soon after it opened. In 1991, the Taj Mahal filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This is a legal process for a company that cannot pay its debts. It allows the company to continue operating while it tries to fix its financial problems. The next year, in 1992, his other casinos also filed for bankruptcy. This was a very difficult time for Donald Trump. Many people in the business world thought he was finished. A book written about him at the time was called Lost Tycoon. A tycoon is a very rich and powerful business person. The book said he was a public laughingstock. His personal life was also in the news. He had an affair with a model named Marla Maples. His marriage to his first wife, Ivana Trump, ended in a very public and messy divorce. The newspapers in New York wrote about it every day. It was a big scandal. But Donald Trump did not give up. He used the bankruptcy laws to his advantage. He was a master of negotiation. He made deals with the banks. He told them, "If you take my company, you will get nothing. The economy is bad, but if you work with me, we can save it." The banks agreed. He lost ownership of some of his properties, but he stayed in business. He learned how to use the system to survive. He later said, "I've used the laws of this country to pare debt." He also changed his business strategy. He realized that his most valuable asset was not his buildings. It was his name. The name Trump was a brand. For many people, it still meant luxury and success. So he started licensing his name. This means other people would build a hotel or a golf course, and they would pay Donald Trump millions of dollars just to use his name on it. This was a great business. He got money, but he didn't have the risk of building. From steaks to vodka to bottled water, many products had the Trump name. In 2004, Donald Trump found a new way to become even more famous. He became the star of a reality TV show. The show was called The Apprentice. The idea of the show was simple. A group of young, ambitious people competed for a job to work for Donald Trump for 1 year with a big salary. Every week, he gave them a business task. For example, they had to sell lemonade on the street, create a new toy, or design an advertisement. They worked in 2 teams. At the end of every show, Trump would meet the teams in his boardroom in Trump Tower. He would ask them questions like, "Who was the leader?" and "Why did your team fail?" Then came the most famous part of the show. Trump would look at the losing team. He would decide which person was responsible for the failure. He would point his finger at that person and say his famous catchphrase, "You're fired." The show was a massive hit. It was the #1 new show on television. Millions of people watched it every week. It made Donald Trump a household name,
not just in America, but around the world. The show presented him as the ultimate boss. He was tough, he was smart, and he was very decisive. For a new generation of people who didn't know about his bankruptcies in the 1990s, Donald Trump was not a real estate developer. He was the powerful, super successful man from TV who said, "You're fired." He hosted the show for 14 seasons. There was also a version called The Celebrity Apprentice, with famous people as contestants. The show was very important for his image. It rebuilt his reputation. It made him seem like a person who was always in charge and always knew what to do. This image would be very important for the next and most surprising chapter of his life, politics.
For many years, Donald Trump talked about politics. He sometimes said he might run for president. He talked about it in the 1980s and again in 2000, but he never did it. Most people didn't take him seriously. They thought it was just a way to get more publicity for his brand. But in the 2010s, he became more involved in politics. He became a leading voice in the birther movement. This was a group of people who said that President Barack Obama was not born in the United States. This was not true. President Obama was born in Hawaii. But Trump talked about it a lot on TV and on social media. It made him popular with some people who did not like President Obama. Then on June 16, 2015, he did something that surprised the world. He came down a golden escalator in Trump Tower. He stood with his wife, Melania, and he announced, "I am officially running for President of the United States." At first, many people laughed. They thought it was a joke. There were 16 other Republican candidates. They were experienced politicians. They were governors and senators. Donald Trump was a reality TV star with no political experience. But his campaign was different. He held big rallies. Thousands and thousands of people came to see him. He was not a typical politician. He spoke in a simple, direct way. He was often controversial. He said things that other politicians would never say. His main slogan was, "Make America Great Again." He said that America had problems. He said other countries, like China and Mexico, were taking America's jobs. He promised to build a big wall on the border with Mexico to stop illegal immigration. He said he would make better trade deals for America. His supporters loved his message. They were tired of normal politicians. They felt that Washington was broken. They saw Trump as a strong, successful outsider who could bring real change. He used Twitter, a social media website, to talk directly to the people every day. He gave his opponents nicknames like Crooked Hillary and Lion Ted. He attacked the news media, calling them fake news. He dominated the news. Every day, everyone was talking about Donald Trump. One by one, the other Republican candidates dropped out of the race. In the end, he won the Republican nomination. He was going to face the Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton, in the final election. Almost everyone thought Hillary Clinton would win. She was a former First Lady, a senator, and Secretary of State. She had a lot of experience. The polls, which are surveys of voters, said she was ahead. But on election night, November 8, 2016, the world was shocked. Donald Trump won. He didn't win the popular vote. More people in total voted for Hillary Clinton. But he won the Electoral College.
This is the system America uses to choose its president. Each state has a certain number of electoral votes. To win, a candidate needs 270. Trump won in important states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, states that Democrats usually won. He won 304 electoral votes. It was one of the biggest surprises in American political history. On January 20, 2017, Donald J. Trump was inaugurated as the 45th President of the United States. He was the first president with no prior military or government experience. His presidency was just as unconventional as his campaign. He continued to use Twitter to announce policies and attack his opponents. He continued to have large rallies with his supporters. As president, he made some big changes. He passed a large tax cut for businesses and individuals. He put 3 conservative judges on the Supreme Court: Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. This is the highest court in the country, and its judges serve for life, so this was a very important and long-lasting change. He changed America's trade deals with other countries and started a trade war with China. He was very tough on immigration. He started building his wall on the border with Mexico and implemented a controversial travel ban on people from several Muslim-majority countries. His supporters were very happy. They felt he was keeping his promises. His opponents were very unhappy. They said his policies were dangerous and his words were divisive. His presidency was full of controversy. There was a long investigation by Robert Mueller into whether his campaign worked with Russia to win the election. He was impeached twice by the House of Representatives. Impeachment is a process to remove a president from office. The first time was for asking Ukraine to investigate his political rival, Joe Biden. The second time was for encouraging the attack on the Capitol, but he was not removed by the Senate either time. His 4 years in the White House were a time of great change and great division in America. In 2020, Donald Trump ran for re-election. His opponent was the Democrat, Joe Biden, who was vice president under Barack Obama. The election was very different. It happened during the COVID-19 pandemic. The world was in crisis. After the election, on November 3, Joe Biden was declared the winner. Donald Trump did not accept the result. He said the election was stolen. He said there was massive fraud. He went to court many times, but he and his lawyers lost. There was no evidence of major fraud that could change the result. On January 6, 2021, a large group of his supporters marched to the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. to protest the election result. The protest became a riot, and they attacked the building. It was a dark and violent day in American history. On January 20, 2021, Joe Biden became the 46th president. Many people thought Donald Trump's political career was over. He left Washington, D.C. and went to his home in Florida, a large estate called Mar-a-Lago. He was banned from Twitter and Facebook. But he did not disappear. He started his own social media company, Truth Social. He continued to say the 2020 election was stolen. He remained very popular with Republican voters. And then he decided to do something that is very rare in American history. He decided to run for president again. He announced his campaign for the 2024 election. Again, some people didn't take him seriously. But again, he easily won the Republican nomination.
In the 2024 election, he faced Vice President Kamala Harris. His campaign focused on the economy and immigration, themes that worked for him before. And on November 6, 2024, he won. Donald Trump was elected President of the United States for a second time. He became the first president since Grover Cleveland in the 19th century to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. On January 20, 2025, Donald Trump was inaugurated as the 47th president. His story is unique in American history. A man who started in real estate, became a celebrity, and then reached the highest office in the land. He lost that office and then won it back again. His supporters see him as a strong leader, a patriot, a fighter for the common person, and a successful businessman who knows how to get things done. His critics see him as a dangerous demagogue who threatens democracy and the rule of law. But one thing is certain: Donald Trump has changed America and the world. His story is a story about ambition, branding, and the power of communication in the 21st century. It is a story that is still being written.